So cutting down these trees, they also take energy, and that energy has to come from somewhere. And obviously, just burning these fossil fuels, releasing the carbon dioxide in the air. And another thing that helps to contribute to climate change is actually farming. Now, you might realize, well, how does farming contribute, right? And so things like cow farts, cow burps, they actually release methane. And methane is one of the other greenhouse gases that trap the heat. And particularly methane, it traps heat much, much better than the other greenhouse gases. So it's very, very severe. And also the energy used on the farm. You need energy to keep the farm working, and that also causes much more greenhouse gas emissions. And lastly, usage of cars, right? Cars, the engines, the exhaust, the fuel, they all need to work together and they have to burn that fuel, but through combustion, it actually will release carbon dioxide. So again, these are many different ways that our human activities contribute to climate change. But let's take a look at some things that have happened because of climate change. Well, first of all, Earth was much, much, much hotter than 200 years ago. Now, you might think 1.1 degrees Celsius, that's not a lot, right? Or for some Fahrenheit, maybe 3 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very significant because that small amount of change actually has caused several countries to basically go underwater. Well, how do they go underwater? This increase in heat has melted the ice caps at the poles of the Earth, and that ice melts into water, which raises the sea levels. And rising sea levels cause basically countries to go underwater. And also another thing is that it's just too hot. So again, some other effects include hotter temperatures, more severe storms, increased drought because it's very hot, a warming rising ocean, and also species that lose their natural habitat. Because species are losing these natural habitats, they don't have anywhere to live. And if they don't have anywhere to live, they're going to die. So again, loss of species due to climate change. How does climate change affect the environment? Well, first of all, the world's biodiversity. Biodiversity is the variety that the ecosystem has. But for example, again, like I said earlier, because climate change causes this heat differentiation and it just makes everything hotter, there will be less of a basically suitable environment for the ecosystem to have, which means that it will cause more chaos. And you don't want chaos because then some species will just start dying out. And because more species are dying out, that harms the biodiversity. And again, some animals are forced out of the normal living conditions because of this climate change, and they may not survive in the new ones. The ocean. The ocean, when you think about where on Earth has the most carbon dioxide, you might think it's the atmosphere, but the actual answer is the ocean. The ocean has a lot of carbon reservoirs, and the ocean actually also determines the atmospheric carbon dioxide levels as well. But how does the ocean affect climate change? Well, first of all, the ocean transports warm water and precipitation towards the poles and cold water back to the equator. But again, basically, if there is an uneven distribution, then because some places will have warm water and then they might have less of that warm water, they might even have cold water now, that just changes how the environment will be in that area. And that again will change how the climate is. And oceans are also warming, and the warmer the ocean, the less habitable it is. So, for example, coral reefs, they support around 25% of all marine species. But with the warming of the oceans, because the ocean, there are several processes that happen in the ocean, and they have to keep at a certain temperature. And so with the warming of the ocean, things like coral bleaching or infectious disease will basically just spread around more easily with this warming temperature. So again, this is how it harms the biodiversity because it's basically just destroying everywhere that these marine organisms can live. And sea levels also are rising as well because of increased sedimentation in reefs, and it also leads to smothering of the coral. Ocean acidification. The ocean is getting hotter, but it's also getting more acidic. Sure, everyone, if you can stay muted, that would be great. All right. The ocean is becoming more acidic. Why? Because carbon dioxide it's taking up, or it's basically just more and more concentration of that carbon dioxide in this ocean. And carbon dioxide will actually react with water to create, I believe, like bicarbonate acid, which is an acid, and that's just making the ocean more acidic. And because it makes the ocean more acidic, it will cause something called what it's called quote unquote osteoporosis of the sea. That means that the shellfish and like the bones, it basically makes it unusable. And that's just not good because some animals have to rely on these shells and bones to keep them protected. But now that they cannot use those, obviously they will less likely to survive and again harming biodiversity. Weather patterns and farming. The changing weather patterns also affect crop yield because obviously if it's too hot, some organisms will not be able to get the right amount of water because it's all evaporated. And if it's too dry, then again, not enough water. If it's too wet because of different climates due to climate change, then plants will start to rot. And climate change can also create acidic rain. So through the production of these gases from burning fossil fuels, gas, and all those things, it will release these chemicals, and these chemicals can actually mix in with the rain to create acid rain. And acid rain, if you think about its name, it does not sound like a good thing. And what it does, it creates the soil to be more acidic. And some plants rely heavily on like the soil condition. So if the soil condition is too acidic, the plant will not turn out as well as it normally would. And again, if there's not enough food because of this climate change, then people will starve. Because there's already a massive hunger issue going on in many different countries now. With the increased amount of climate change, that will just cause even more issues. Food waste. Some people might think that food waste has nothing to do with climate change. Well, it actually does. Now, in the US alone, nearly 60 million tons of food is wasted each year. And that food goes to these landfills and rot. But obviously, okay, that's normal, right? Well, rotting, the food, when it rots, it releases methane. And again, I already talked about methane. It is one of the greenhouse gases, and it's actually about 20 times better at absorbing heat than the other greenhouse gases. And obviously, the more greenhouse gas, the more impact the greenhouse gas effect has, and it just makes the earth warmer and warmer. And again, it also takes energy to, transport that food over there, dump the food out, and move around. So again, it's a wasting of energy. So again, food waste, one of the big things that contribute to climate change as well. Climate change and human health. How will climate change affect us? Number one, it will catalyze disease and illness. For example, diarrhea. Your body has to maintain homeostasis, and you need to have a certain, different pH level. You need to have certain acidity levels, certain levels that you need to maintain. And with the increase of climate change, these gases that are in the air, more smog, all these things, that will just cause more and more issues for your nervous system and especially your respiratory systems because breathing in carbon dioxide is not good. And also, again, if you smoke, You're breathing in that smoke. That's also not good. It's the same issue that's happening with climate change. So again, frequent extreme weather events like heat waves, storms, and floods can also kill people as well. And the disruption of food systems, again, can also lead to people not having enough food, which means that they're not getting their vitamins, which means that they're likely not be able to grow to their full potential. Air quality. Obviously, if you live in Los Angeles, you see those like big skyscrapers, you think is really cool. But another thing you see smog. There is lots and lots of smog, especially in Los Angeles. And as you can see, smog is basically just air pollution. And you don't want to be breathing polluted air. And what causes polluted air? The same things, these factories that are burning these fossil fuels and contributing to climate change. And there is also increasing climate change. It also increased the amount of ozone at the ground level. And it also increased the amount of dust and smoke that comes from these storms and wildfires. And again, you don't want to be breathing in dust and smoke. Mental health. Obviously, mental health is one of these growing issues that we have. And actually, when there is extreme weather that is caused by climate change, it's noticeable that people are feeling, more sad, feeling that the world is they're in a very bad place in the world. And so that will lead to anxiety and depression. But obviously, with some things are negative, but also there could be some positives as well. Number one, right? Because it's getting hotter, there aren't as much cold waves, because we've all heard of heat waves, right? When it's like extremely, extremely, extremely hot and like unbearable. Well, there's less and less of these cold waves where it's extremely, extremely cold. And this actually used to be a very, very big issue for humans in the past because obviously there weren't as much of these gases, greenhouse gases being emitted. And so it used to be much, much colder. And because it's colder, it's just harder to survive. Plants, they struggle to grow. And also, obviously you got to keep yourself warm more often. And so it used to be a big issue for us. But now, because again, it's getting hotter, it's not that much of an issue. Heat waves are more of an issue. And because it's also getting hotter, there is also a longer growing season because obviously plants almost impossible to grow in the winter. And because it's impossible to grow in the winter, they need a longer, basically spring, summer like weather. And so with climate change, again, it's a longer period of it being warm. So farmers enjoy longer growing season. And also another thing is that because like ice caps are melting right now, it might reveal some more land, and that could be potentially be used to solve overcrowding because new people can move to that land. And lastly, more of a business perspective, the Northwest Passage, which is like in the north of Canada, it's basically going to be there's not going to be as much ice anymore because again, it's getting all melted. So obviously, what can we do against climate change, right? It's not something that we can't solve. It's something that can be dealt with. But it all starts with one person because obviously our effects will grow exponentially. We need to prove that it's an issue that we can deal with, starting from one person, and that ideas will spread out, and eventually it will reach to almost everyone. And so some methods could be changing to renewable resources. For example, hydroelectricity, where they use like the ocean's power to turn engines that give us electricity. Also windmills, they use the wind to turn electricity. Solar panels use the sun's energy. And these are all different methods that we can use instead of using these non-renewable energy resources that will just contribute to the greenhouse effect. Another one is using less automobiles, specifically non-electric ones, because electric vehicles they use batteries and that doesn't really contribute as much to climate change. But using these automobiles that, burn fuel and all these things through combustion, it will release carbon dioxide. So using less of that will release less greenhouse gases. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. It works for food as well, reducing the amount that you're wasting, reusing your food, and also recycling your food, and also recycling things that should be recycled as well, that shouldn't be just thrown away, left to rot. Yeah, throw away less food and saving energy, especially for electronics, because one thing that is popular, or I notice, is that people don't like to turn off their lights. People leave their, like 50 different things charged at once, and that costs energy, and that energy has to come from somewhere. And that energy comes from burning fossil fuels, releasing carbon dioxide into the air, and just contributing to climate change. So again, take turn off your lights. It will save energy. Unplug electronics when you're not using them so that they don't cost energy to keep charging. Take shorter showers because, again, heating up that water takes energy, and just using that water also takes energy. And overall, just use less water. So, what have we already done? Where are we right now in our stance to control climate change? Number one, there are some government policies that try to limit climate change, and that's our goal. We want to try and limit the amount of climate change and even potentially reverse it. So some countries have adopted clean energy standards, for example, using the sun energy, using the wind's energy, or using water's energy. Some people get tax exemptions from using clean energy, or some people get tax credits as well. And also, countries have passed laws that try to limit the amount of climate change. And climate change is something that is reversible. We can try and prevent climate change from getting too severe. But obviously, that requires everyone to work together, and that's what we're trying to do. And lastly, this is one of the main topics that we are going to be ending off with today. And the first thing is youth activism. So obviously, we've been trying to reach out to as many people as we can, many volunteers, to try and spread the word about climate change and deal with the issue. And so what we did is we've been trying to reach out to, again, middle school students, high school students, which I believe some of you are here. So, and we have these volunteering opportunities that we will be providing for everyone that can help try and, again, limit the amount of climate change and its effects. So why is volunteering very important, right? Because volunteering, it helps build your character, and also helps build your social skills and also your leadership skills, right? Because, again, showing that you care about this, it many people will see it and think, yes, this is very, very good. I like how they're dedicated and all these things. So again, we are providing these great opportunities for everyone. And so like to invite Jacqueline to talk about Climate Change Task Force, which is what we are and what we're trying to do.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everyone. I'm Jacqueline here, and today I would like to talk a little bit about Climate Change Task Force. So, Climate Change Task Force is a registered nonprofit based in California, and we also have members throughout North America. And it would be great if you guys took inspiration from this presentation, which is our Climate Change Task Force curriculum, inspired by Stanford University's climate change curriculum. So if you're interested in youth activism or spreading advocacy towards younger generations, please ask Jonathan. He'll probably give you a flyer that has the QR code in to join. So essentially, if you are interested in joining, you can become a member, and there will be a lot of cool volunteering experiences, and you'll definitely learn and gain a lot of new experiences from joining Climate Change Task Force. And also we have another branch in Cameroon. So that branch is also very successful and has been teaching this curriculum that Jonathan has presented today in French. And they also have gained a really prestigious award for that. So that's about it. That's all I have to say. But if you're interested in joining, please ask Jonathan, and he'll probably give you the flyer that has the QR code.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. All right, so again, this is our climate change curriculum that we've been teaching to different schools and also organizations, and we will continue to be doing so. So again, if you would like to help us, teach this curriculum, help with, reducing climate change, then I highly recommend joining Climate Change Task Force. Again, we will be having providing opportunities for volunteering and also helping, and it shows lots of dedication. So again, please join Climate Change Task Force. Again, you can ask inside the WeChat group for the link to join as a member. And yeah. So does anyone have any questions? We can do the Q&A right now. If you guys have any questions, you can ask. We will be answering them. You can ask inside the chat, or you can also just unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Okay, you're interested. So I will be sending out the QR code form probably later today. And so you could just check the WeChat. Yes, and if you don't have any questions, if you don't have any questions, then you guys are free to go. Again, thank you so much for coming and listening to our presentation. So again, any other questions? What is the opportunity for volunteer? So to basically, so here's the things that we do for Climate Change Task Force. So we have several different things that we do. For example, the first one is, again, we do this education thing where we basically go to different schools and we basically present this curriculum and just teach everyone about, the effects of climate change and all these things. And other things that we do publish articles that basically, talk about these climate change things and some different things as well. So again, we do publish articles, and we also have people, building up connections as well, interviewing professors. And also we host this, sorry, we host this World Youth Conference at least once a year, where again, we invite different professors to come over and speak. All right. Any other questions? Okay, looks like I'm not getting any questions. So again, if you don't have any more questions, you're free to go. So I'll be ending this meeting in like a minute. So again, if you have questions, you can ask now. Otherwise, you guys can leave the Zoom. Thank you for coming and listening. Is this a club? We are a nonprofit organization, and we issue volunteering hours that these volunteering hours can be accumulated, and you can use these volunteering hours to apply for the President's Volunteer Service Award, which is a very, very prestigious award. And what happened if they didn't clean? Not exactly too clear on your question here, but I'm assuming again, what I'm assuming that you mean like what will happen, I guess, if we don't do anything. So what happens when we won't do anything is that there will be, again, increased amount of basically just natural disasters and all these different terrible events, and also just earth getting much, much hotter as well. Eventually some countries will just be too hot to survive. And yeah, so we want to try and reverse this climate change. What is the President Award for volunteering? So, volunteering is basically, you're doing this job, but without pay. Instead, you get these volunteering hours here. And again, the President's Award is just basically an award recognizing that you basically did volunteering to, help society, help your environment. So it's signed by the president, given out by the president. So again, it's very, very prestigious, and it looks very, very good. You could say that, you had this award. It looks very, very good. You can say that, you've done these things, and also it just helps. And volunteering also just helps, build your character, build your leadership, build your social skills. So yeah. Hmm. Okay. All right. Any more questions? All right. Looks like I'm not getting any more questions inside the chat. So if you have any more questions, you can always send it inside the WeChat group. And yeah, so you can always send it inside the WeChat group. We will be posting the QR code for like the membership, like applying to be a member. And yeah. Okay, so thank you all for coming. We'll see you guys soon. And hopefully you take into consideration joining Climate Change Task Force. All right, bye everyone.